your perspective, what is the difference between design and development?
Huh. It's design to me, if I want to compare it to making a car, design is on paper. You prototype it and all those things, but development is basically making it actually work. Like I can prototype a car, for example, I can move it with my hands, but in order to make it work so other people can use it, you need an engineer to just plug things together.
And this, it's a pretty obviously elementary question for people in the field, but the reason I ask this is because there's a lot of people out there, our clients, potential clients, whoever, who don't really understand that marriage between design and development, right? Whether you're making shoes or a website or a car for that matter, right? And so as someone who kind of seems like you understand both sides of it pretty well.
Yeah.
Like how important is it in your opinion to get those two things to kind of mesh together? And how do you get them to mesh together?
Well, technically, you can get away with just having an engineer coding the website or product for you, and it will be designed by the engineer, which you probably don't want to.
Right. But just because it's functional doesn't mean that it's actually going to work.
Exactly. So
Frankenstein worked, right?
So you want someone who's experienced in design, understands the mechanics, understands human psychology, understands your business, understands your goals, and carves up a solution for you. You can do the same thing as a business owner. I'm on the other side of the table right now, so I understand a lot of things more better, and I have distrust towards a third party, right? Because I feel like they don't understand my work, my business. But designer's job is basically take all the information, put it together, understand your problem, and come up with a solution. And take that solution to the engineer where they can look at the technical aspects of it and make it actual product.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I don't know, maybe this is because I feel like I feel like I fairly understand both sides pretty well. I feel like the design part, if you don't understand it, like we were saying, like just because it's functional doesn't mean it's going to work. But I feel like a designer can morph easier into a developer rather than the other way around. Like if you're a developer, I think it's harder to figure out the design aspect. Where if you're a designer, I think because development at some point just becomes 1 and 0, right? It's black, it's white, it's this or that. It's logical when you're a developer. So I think as a designer, you can go into the other side a lot easier than going back the other way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm not sure. I started doing coding first. I was doing a little bit of graphic design, but I was just curious about both sides. So I transitioned from code to design professionally. So in my case, it just worked fine.
Right.
But I can understand like when you're focusing in one aspect of these two categories, you kind of get lost in the details and you want to learn it more. You want to be an expert. So you don't use the muscles that needs creativity to solve these problems like a designer does.
Sure.
You just work your other muscles. Like engineers are also designers too, but they solve problems with code, right?
Right. Or with logic, I guess.
With logic.
Right.
Huh. No, so the other I always like talking to designers, especially in UI UX designers in this day and age, because when you think about marketing, you think about the content, where you're going to distribute that content, but more and more design becomes a really important part of marketing, right? And it could be what I call like funnel, everything down, like what do your landing pages look like? How much do they have to scroll? Are you on a button? Are you putting a drop shadow behind it? And what does that do to your conversion rates, right? So in some of the design that you've worked with when it comes to like web development, like landing pages, websites, how much do you factor marketing conversion or marketing goals into how you design? Right, when you put a mock-up together or whatever the case is.
I think as a designer, it's your responsibility to know about these things. Like as a designer, you solve a problem. If it's a landing page, your biggest goal there is to convert people to sign up or whatever, right? So you have to understand the human psychology. You have to understand the copy on that page affects the conversion. The image you use on that page affects the conversion. The button, everything affects the conversion. So in that sense, you are actually responsible for all of those things, and you have to think like a marketing person. When you're designing a website, you have to think like a coder as well. So you design something that's easy to implement, so you can help them along the way. Also, you have to think about the business goals, right? You have to consider all of those things. I see designer as like a multidisciplinary role in a company. It's like a bridge between multiple departments.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. So you get information from all the departments, put them together, and create a solution that satisfies every need.
I think my biggest challenge in working with designers is exactly that. It's understanding all the different departments that go into that final product, because I think, at least with the designers that I've worked with, they're much more on, I would say, creative.
Yeah, it's pretty picture first,
right?
Functionality second.
Yeah. Like this looks amazing, but it doesn't work on a landing page with a white background, you know, or things like that. And so, I think it's tough. Like you put a job description for a designer out there, and maybe this is why you get down specifically to a UI or a UX designer, right?
Definitely.
But I think the word designer gets thrown around a lot, right?
I think it's interesting that you mentioned the psychology of, obviously it's of the end user, whoever is going to be utilizing the tool or that piece of, if it's software or even if it's just graphic design, right? Because even that comes down to a specific like how to lead your eye down a page, things like that. Do you, like, I know you didn't go to school for UX and UI, but now that it's a thing, do you think, are they teaching psychology as part of that?
In the schools, you mean?
Yeah.
I think, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
that's part of the curriculum.
I think it's a huge part of it, like human psychology, why we do the things we do, why we buy that thing, not this thing.
Right.
What happens when you present them like 10 different solutions,
what colors, for example, people gravitate towards, or how they react to a specific
every
color.
little thing affects what we do. So it's not about like, this I use red here and white here, they match together. It's not it.
Yeah.
That's just visual design.
It's funny because when you were talking about working with designers and how they kind of just gravitate towards the visual aspect or the creative aspect, a really funny scene in Silicon Valley popped in my head when they have this guy who's like presenting this box. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, the Hooli box.
Well, it's before it was the Hooli box. It was the Piper box, but basically they're just like a box, and he's like flipping through different backgrounds behind it and different music, and he's just like, just design me a box. So he brings it back, and it's just a black box, and they're like, amazing.
That's the creative.
It's just so funny. But yeah, I mean, you're right, because there's all this like extra like, black magic around creative, creativity.
Like you start thinking of like movies or films or artists who are painting murals and things like that, but
Apple has a pretty good hand in branding it.
That's
that
true,
way.
actually.
Let's do these videos with like Johnny.
Everyone's got an iPad as a designer now.
We designed the iPhone with 3mm, but those ads. Yeah, you can thank them for branding it that way. All right. So what are some of the current trends that you're seeing? I mean, I know you're kind of stepping out of that as like, I don't think you'll ever get away from it, just from curiosity standpoint, right? You'll probably never give it up, but just taking a step back, have you seen any trends in the last couple of years that are happening?
So nowadays, I think we are going towards ethical design. Things happening with Facebook and all those things. Like designers have this power in their hands, and sometimes they're not aware of. Like you can make someone do the exact thing you want them to do. You can design their psychology
They're
around this,
ventriloquists.
right? So basically, big companies like Facebook, they figured out these kind of triggers. That's why their products are so effective. So I think a lot of designers are now realizing that the power they have in their hands, and they push others in the tech community, especially, to design more ethical products.
That's interesting. Okay.
I have a really, I don't know, maybe it's a stupid question. What's up with all the gradients out there now? Is that like, where the fuck did that come from?
the visual design trends, I stopped following them because it doesn't really matter. Like when you're in the industry for a while, you see like something comes and some other things comes up, and everybody's like obsessed with it, and then a year later something is different.
Went through like, I don't know, 15 years of glossy buttons.
Yeah.
Man, I hated that.
Flat. Like, everything's flat,
everything's flat with a slight gradient. Yeah. And rounded edges, and again, like Apple like leads the charge on a lot of these trends.
Right.
Definitely.
I mean, the curvature of the laptop versus the phone versus the icon in the app are all like identical. And I mean, the notch
on the iPhone,
is a great example. So this year, they came out with the iPhone 10 and it had the notch, and it got a lot of flack because it's, whatever. Every other phone manufacturer since has recreated it and replicated it for a trendy reason.
And it's interesting that these, and I think this actually goes back to design in general. So like BMW, their famous thing is the kidney grills in the front of the car, right? That is essentially the notch.
Yeah.
Even on your Apple Watch, you see the icon of the iPhone 10 with a notch on it. I mean, those are the kidney grills, right? That you would see on.
It's the slightest.
And that's
like he's saying, it's a trigger.
Right. But now that was industrial design, right? Like machine stuff, and now it's being translated from the actual thing, that physical, tangible object, into the actual software that icon should represent of that tangible thing. So
what you're saying is, version 4 of the Apple Watch is now going to have a notch and it's going to take away from the 2-inch screen that I already have.
Or I can't wait to see the Apple Watch icon with a notch on it.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. Make sure you check out the full episode in our Tobe YouTube channel. You can hear the full episode there. Or if you just want to listen to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you can find a podcast.